Good evening, everyone. My name is Jeremy Duncan, the host of the TXK State of Mind podcast. Tonight, for our fourth episode of our TXK conversation, we have a very special guest, a native of Texarkana, Texas, a graduate, 1997 graduate of Liberty Isle High School, graduate of the University of Central Arkansas, as well as a recent graduate of Clark Atlanta University, having received her doctorate. We have Dr. Taryn Chambers-Givan on to talk with us about what it means to be different, progressive, and out the box. Dr. Chambers-Givan, welcome to the stage.
Oh, thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
All right. I know when I first started my podcast, I had in mind of some people I want to kind of target. Some people I had a little bit of background with from doing my dealings with my job here at the Workforce Center and different opportunities I had with different people that I've worked with. So your name was one of the people that I wanted to tap into and kind of pick your brain and kind of see all the things that you've been doing. Watching you from afar, I think the first time I met you was when I was working at Liberty Isle as an academic advisor. And we had the organization I was in, we had an event there, and you were very helpful of helping me get situated with the auditorium and everything. We had our convention going on. And so that was my first instance of meeting you. And then I had an opportunity to bring you on to speak with one of our transition programs we did with our youth with the Texas Workforce Commission Vocational Rehabilitation Program. You were a big hit then. And then when I came back full circle, when I started doing my own podcast, I said, I got to get her on. I've been watching all the things you've been doing on Facebook and social media. So I had to get you on and kind of talk about some of the things that you have going on in the community. So tonight will be a little discussion about you, your vision, what you have planned for the future, and how the role that you play in the educational sphere is going to allow Texarkana to grow. We're in a big rebirth, a revitalization of our community. And I believe that the educational piece is going to be key to that rebirth, to our citizens being able to think about how they can contribute, how they can take their talents and be able to contribute to our community in that rebirth. So tell us a little bit about yourself. So what you've been doing, I know we talked about you're still an educator, but yes. How has that evolved? How have that spirit evolved for you?
Yes, absolutely. That is a common question, believe it or not. For those who have known me all of my life, this is not anything new, but for individuals who are now meeting me with no longer being in a public school, that is a common question. So this is my 23rd year. I still use that fiscal period of education, like I was in public school. So from, July until June, I still use that. So I'm in my 23rd year as an educator. That consisted of 19 years in public schools, or what we would say P12, or some people say K12. I was a teacher, an assistant principal, a turnaround principal. That's in P12. Higher education, I have worked and currently working again as an adjunct professor. And then I've transitioned as of 20 when I started my business, Divergent Educational Consulting. That led me to having a contract with an ed tech company called Better Lesson.
Okay.
It's for professional development. We offer one-to-one coaching. It's virtual coaching. We also offer virtual workshops and in-person workshops. Well, that contract led me into a full-time position with Better Lessons. So I'm full-time with that company. And then I also am full-time with Divergent Educational Consulting. And if I could just share one thing about the contracted piece that led to the full-time position, and maybe this is just encouraging someone, showing up with a degree of excellence and showing up as who you are. You never know who's watching. And I know we hear people say that, but for me to be tapped and to say that, there's a full-time position on this particular team within Better Lesson that we really think that you would be good for, apply for that. We see what you're doing as a contractor. I was an instructional coach that was facilitating only at the time. So Better Lesson, we have national coverage. We have coaches that are international. And, I can be virtually with someone in California at 8 a.m. And then I log back on to facilitate a workshop, and I'm with individuals that are in Georgia. And so just showing up authentically, doing the work, honoring the obligations that I had of that contract actually led me into a full-time position. And I never thought, Jeremy, that I would love working remotely, because
Right.
I was boots on the ground for 19 years in a brick and mortar setting. But I do. I
Yes.
love it. I love the flexibility. And I know it's not for everyone, but I have to remind people that I am still an educator. It's just in a different sector. It's with educational technology, it's with a professional development company, but I am a contractor operations manager, which means that I basically, as an instructional coach, I am there to support our contractors that are serving with our
Right.
coaching and our virtual facilitation.
Okay. So there's a lot of talk about, especially in Texas and of course around the country, there's a teacher shortage or teachers are leaving the field. So with the work you do, how does the work that you do impact that and curving that tide of teachers thinking about leaving, or people that may be good in educators decide maybe I don't want to go into that field? How does your work maybe impact that or help to change that the direction that's starting to go in?
Right. So for either one, I could speak, Divergent or Better Lesson. One of the biggest things is just providing a thought partner, having someone
Mhm.
that you can meet with, whether it's in person. And as I stated with Better Lesson, our coaching is virtual. But to have someone, whether they are living in your region, whether they know much about your district or not, to have someone who has had the experience that matches where you are, or with our novice educators, they're just thankful to have anyone to meet with,
Right.
to serve as a thought partner, to talk through things, to give you an opportunity to share what your challenges are, what your goals are, and to have someone who is not here to judge you. They're not evaluative, they're not a part of your district. They're a listening ear. It's a safe space. That is what we offer. And then specifically with me, with Divergent Educational Consulting, that is also a service that I offer to coach and to be that thought partner and to be that one-on-one or one-to-many, but just to have someone that you can really think through things through. They can challenge you and kind of push you a little bit to think. I'm going to use one of my terms, think outside the box, or think a little
Right.
progressively, and to really challenge your thinking and to make sure that you have thought it all the way through. There's so many facets to being an educator, to being in the
Right.
classroom. So when we talk about teacher shortage, you know, I I've been a part of teacher preparation programs, of course, teaching on a collegiate level. And one of the things that I really tried to do was to make sure that these lessons and the instruction was authentic and that it was really connected to what's happening in these classrooms, making it applicable. Theory, research, that's wonderful. You have to have it. But when
Mhm.
they walk out of that classroom, out of an educational, program, to go into a classroom to teach for the very first year, very first semester, they need to know how this applies. What does this look like with the different demographics of students that I could possibly serve? And we know in Texarkana, depending on the district that you're
Right.
in, I worked in Liberty Ilo, which is my alma mater. I worked there for 12 years as a teacher and an
Mhm.
assistant principal. We only have one of every campus. So you move
Right.
from pre-K to the elementary over to the middle school, high school. But when you talk about Texarkana Independent School District, where I also worked for 7 years, you have about 9 elementary campuses that feed into a middle school and then a high school. So if you're an elementary teacher, it just depends on the campus that you're on as far as the needs and the dynamics of that
Right.
community school. And so for me, I really believe and I have seen the benefit of instructional coaching. Was very blessed to work with some of the best instructional coaches ever in TISD when I was a campus principal.
Right.
That is where I saw that program in person, hands on, see the benefit of having individuals who can go in and co teach with these teachers and work with them through their lesson plans and be a genuine and a sincere support. And that is definitely what we need. And believe it or not, we have a lot of districts, a lot of campuses that do not have instructional coaching. So for Better Lesson, with us providing virtual coaching, that is filling that gap for a lot of districts to be able to provide someone to meet with their staff.
Okay. With your connection with EdTech, I'm assuming that has a lot to do with implementing technology into the classrooms and everything. So how is that um, push going? Because I know when COVID hit, there was a big push for all the teachers to be able to just jump into the Zoom and the Teams and all the different formats to be able to relay that curriculum and that instruction to those students. So how big of a part or does ed tech play in transitioning or implementing instruction technology into the instruction that they're providing to those students that they're impacting on a daily basis?
Yes, I can only speak for our ed tech company because I've only worked for one, but I can tell you the summer of 20 is when I started as a contracted coach with Better Lesson. And that summer was busy with professional development, several workshops about making that transition with learning management systems and how to keep students engaged and to really help our educators think about some of those challenges, being comfortable with Zoom or being comfortable with Teams, thinking through whether or not the devices that the students are using, how compatible are they with Zoom? You know,
Right,
using a MacBook or if they're using a Chromebook, there's different features that will show up on the screen. And so having to have people who provided professional development to literally walk you through whether it was a one-time PD offering or whether it was a series that we offered. We had teachers who were boots on the ground who were offering these services as facilitators, or individuals like myself who were, of course, like fresh out of a P12 setting, but had a lot of technology or being tech savvy, so to speak, to be able to offer that support. And so, yes, from an ed tech standpoint, that's what we do. Our company is 100% remote. And
right,
so everything that we do internally is, with technology. So
right,
therefore, being able to speak on that and to show how to use Zoom. I use Zoom for tutoring with one of the students that I have, and being able to use those features. There's so many things that some people don't know about. And so not only was that instrumental in 2020 during school closures, but even post COVID and even now, it really challenged the way a lot of educators thought about the use of technology. And it
right,
really just depended on where they were on the spectrum of adopting technology, not even
right.
connected to COVID, but just in general. You have
Mhm.
some people who are truly open to, how can I implement this? How can I use this for differentiation in the classroom? How can I use this when I'm in small groups and I want to work with
Right.
this group and have other students working on this? And then, of course, you have individuals who haven't yet come on board with the use of technology. I want to say this: there is absolutely no replacement of a quality teacher. Technology is a resource to use to
Right.
supplement what that educator is doing, but it also has to come with professional development, not
Right.
one time in July and August, and then you leave those educators hanging the rest of the year. It has to be continuous professional development. And that's also where that instructional coaching picks up. That after you've had these virtual workshops or you've had this training, then instructional coaches can pick up and continue to work with you throughout your 6 weeks, your 9 weeks, whatever rotation, this campus or that district may be on.
Okay. Yeah, I know. I know. I saw. I think it was last week. There was the African American Educators Summit that was held over at TISD. I know you posted something about that. I think those type of things that are going on. I think the things that you're doing are some of the things that are going to allow not only our teachers to be better educators, but also for our students to be able to grasp what's being relayed in those classrooms.
Mhm.
With the different curriculum and the different teach that's coming on, whether it's be in Arkansas or Texas or around the country. I think having a more, I wouldn't say more, but a better equipped teacher to go in and tackle all the things that we're required to teach our students so they can be able to master those tests and be able to go out into the world and
Mhm.
be model citizens or contributing citizens to the country is going to come back to the educational piece. So that's one of the things I really want to talk about. I know your background as an educator spans from the elementary level now to the college level to your consulting piece. What are some of the similarities or some of the different techniques that you find yourself you may be used as a teacher and as a principal that you're now using or evolving into the work that you do as a contractor and as an adjunct professor right now?
Right. One of the biggest things when I was in the classroom, and I'm going to pull in, diversity, equity, inclusion,
Right.
belonging. I think that you can't speak about being an effective educator without having that conversation.
Right.
One of the things that I definitely want to point out, I ran across this quote in preparing for a workshop through Better Lesson, and I had not heard of this educator and this author. His name is Cornelius Minor. And he has a quote, I may be paraphrasing a little bit, that talks about inclusivity in the context of teaching and learning, that is not just about being present or allowing someone to be present. That's like that diverse piece. Like, well, we have
Right.
diversity within our student population, etc. But inclusivity is meaning that we've changed ourselves and our practices. We've really evaluated who we are to make sure that this is a place where you can thrive. And so
Right.
when you talk about being effective as an educator, whether it's in public schools, in the classrooms, whether you're talking about doing this virtually, which when I teach as an adjunct professor it's virtually. For me, one of the things that the similarities is really providing a space where people feel seen, feel heard, and that they
Right.
feel safe and that they belong. And so for me, facilitating a course in a doctoral program, it could be my voice the entire hour and a half, 2 hours that we're there. But when we think about research, that is not how people learn,
Right.
solely just from hearing someone, speak and give this information to them, what we used to call lecture style. And
Right.
I don't know about you, but I remember growing up in those type of environments where the professor or the teacher's voice was the only voice that you heard.
Right.
They may have asked a couple of questions just to check for, some understanding. Usually it may have been the same few people that they called
Yeah.
on this at the same time, but finding these innovative ways to make sure that it is engaging
Right.
and that you are giving opportunities. We hear it's old, it's an old research adage about wait time, but being comfortable with silence for a moment and providing opportunities for students and adults alike to be able to process information. That doesn't mean that, oh, these individuals don't necessarily, have the intelligence to answer my question, but we need processing time. We may be
Right.
trying to make a connection. So for me, that parallel of what I use, no matter what space, is for one, making sure that my information that I present is very connected, that they understand where we're going. So
Right.
those objectives, again, sounding like a true educator, having
Right.
those objectives, talking about maybe an agenda, where we're going, the intent of our space,
Right.
circling back to that, but providing space for them to be involved, to ask questions, even to challenge me. And you
Right.
probably heard me say that I facilitate that course because the learning doesn't just have to come from me. And that is
Right.
so crucial for any teachers or educators that may be listening to my voice right now, utilizing students in that classroom who have truly mastered that objective and using them to peer teach. There's these Kagan strategies and structures that's out there, this research that supports that, but you're facilitating that learning. It doesn't solely have to be about you because
Right.
what I teach is what I remember. And if I'm able to teach it to someone else, that means that I've truly mastered it, I comprehend it, and then I've learned how to deliver it. And we're also helping teachers and adults alike with their speaking, being able to put what they know, being
Right.
able to deliver that and translate that into a meaningful message or a clear message for somebody to understand.
You're so right. I think my greatest point of retention, even when in class or even at work, has been when that instructor, that facilitator, allowed me to come in, allowed me to get on the stage, allowed me to interact and be engaged, ask questions. That's how I learned the most. The things that I retained the most are when someone allowed me to relay how I comprehended what they just told to me. And
Mhm.
so what you just said is really true, and that's some of the things how we'll go about teaching my daughters. I would go about trying to show them and give them opportunity, ask them inquisitive questions so they can be able to think about how they will go about relaying something to someone. So I think the approach that you're taking with both of the brands that you're connected with is going to be able to, again, create a bigger opportunity for our teachers to better impact the student and our students to be able to come out into the world and impact the communities that they're going into.
Yes.
You do a little bit more than you do a lot. I just doing my research. I know we talked a little bit earlier. I was trying to research, and you've been doing a lot. I've been tracking you, watching you, kind of seeing all the things that you do, and you have a really unique thing that you're doing with your centering our voices piece. And I wanted to kind of give you an opportunity to talk about that because you have some really interesting guests that you've talked to that you've highlighted on your social media platforms, and I wanted to give you a chance to talk about that.
Thank you. Well, I first want to make sure that I give some background about
Yes, ma'am.
centering our voices, the brilliance, persistence, and significance of Black women educators. This was tied to, or this is an extension rather, of my dissertation. And one of the things that we have always been encouraged to do, I had an amazing dissertation chair. I have to shout him out just in case I'm able to share this with him, Dr. Sean Warner of Clark Atlanta University. One of the things that he encouraged me to do, obviously being in the program when I was completing my doctorate, was to get the dissertation finished. The best
Right,
dissertation is a done dissertation, and then you can extend it. You can go further. So my dissertation was about the lived experiences of Black women faculty in academia. Now, centering our voices is extended to just any Black women in education. So, not in
right,
higher education, but we have women, there's 22 of us, including myself, that is
mhm,
going to be a part, or that is a part of this anthology that is going to be releasing in the coming months. And it stemmed from my dissertation about not only my journey as a Black
right,
woman in education amidst all of those challenges and even my triumphs as well. I don't always want to highlight, that there
right,
were just challenges, because I have really been blessed in my career with a lot of triumphs and being able to make a difference. But one of the things that I saw in choosing to use that as my research was the gap in the literature. And so from that, I thought, how can I extend this? What can I do with this to keep the momentum? Finishing up as a summer 2023 graduate, what can I do next? And so Dr. Kimberly Ellison, who happens to be one of my best friends, has a publishing company, Sparkle Publishing. And I
okay,
have authored books, co-authored books with her publishing company. We have had an anthology before, and I reached out to her to say, I would love to pull together an anthology to have Black women, all over from wherever, not restricted to a specific region, but through marketing, whoever would like to join this, to be a part of this, to share their lived experiences. And really, the objective of this anthology is to be able to document not only their brilliance, the persistence and significance of their contributions. We're going to be looking at the history, of course, of other Black women educators, but really to make sure that we're inspiring and empowering those who are current practitioners in the schools, those who aspire to be. And, we even have a population of people who may have left education and they're coming back. And
right,
so I really see this anthology as being a unique piece for community building within the co-authors that are a part of this anthology, but also as representation. And we know that that is so important. Being a Black woman in education was really huge for a lot of my students.
right,
I didn't realize that until, as they say, you understand things better by and by. I
right,
didn't really understand that until I sat and I thought about one of these interactions. And Cantrell, if you see this video, yes, I'm going to tell this story again, and I'm going to tell it as many times as I can tell it. My first year teaching at Liberty Ilo at the CK Bender campus, I was teaching fourth grade science. And I was actually pregnant with my daughter at the time and was getting ready to go out on maternity leave. So I had about a week and a half
right,
to get these students together before I left them, with the sub, Miss Ernestine King, who happens to be my neighbor. So shout out to her. She did a phenomenal job back in
right,
2001 with them. So I'm walking, around the classroom and I'm prepping, and Cantrell is literally sitting here with his mouth open. And in my mind, I'm like, I've reviewed the folders. There wasn't anything to tell me that there might have been,
right,
something that I needed to be aware of with this student. So I walked up to him and I kind of whispered, I said, "Hey, Cantrell, is everything okay?" And he looked up at me, Jeremy, and he said, I've never had a Black teacher before.
Mm.
And in that moment, it hit me, but it really didn't resonate with me until years later. It caused me to sit back and think, how many African-American teachers or Black teachers that I have, not just Black women, but just in general. But for him to say, like, you remind me of my mom, I've never experienced this before. And then, there's a little flavor and a different kind of,
Right.
flair that we bring into the classroom. And, Denzel Washington said on one of my favorite movies, Remember the Titans, when he walked out there on the field and he said, this is my sanctuary right here. That's how I felt about my classroom. Like, that's my wheelhouse. If I had to today to go back into the classroom and teach, I would be perfectly fine with that. That is where I felt like I shined the most, because I was able to be, students allow you, especially in fourth grade, they were still impressionable. Now, I never taught middle school and high school, so kudos to all of those individuals who do that. But in elementary school, they were still impressionable. And I was able to really be myself and test out some of my creativity and my innovativeness. And they would be honest. They'd be like, no, at that time, Miss Wells, don't do that again. That didn't work. Or we didn't understand that. Or you need to tweak it. But that's what I mean by that significance of being a Black woman or just a Black educator in the classrooms. That representation matters. And I think it's up to us to be advocates for the field of education, to bring about that change, to offer these discussions, to offer these conversations, to think about, even in schools that may not have a diverse population, do you really think that all of your students are going to remain in your neighborhood forever? They're going to go out into a diverse world, and they're going to interact with, Black and brown individuals, people of all nationalities, different walks of life, different upbringings. That's why diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, all of that is so important. And I know that our book will aid in that conversation. And I want it to also be a data source, to be used in academia for those researchers and things of that nature. And so I know that those buzzwords, so to speak, what people say, I know that it's under fire. I know there's a lot of pushback, but we're not going to stop advocating for the importance of representation. We're not going to stop advocating for people to tell their truth. Those lived experiences, that's their truth. That's my truth as a Black woman educator, how I experience that in public schools and academia, in ed tech, or whatever the case may be. And so centering our voices is just with the Black women educators is just the beginning. The fellas are going to be up next.
I was going to ask you.
That hasn't been announced, but I'm just going to say that here. So you're the first to have it there. We're gonna move to our Black men after we go ahead and release Centering Our Voices, the Brilliance, Persistence, and Significance of Black Women Educators. Then we're going to move and do another series. And it is my hope, Jeremy, that we'll round out that series with the voices of our students. And so I'm still thinking through how that's going to look, obviously having to have parent participation depending on what grade level they're in and things of that nature. But that's part of the vision that's been given to me. And that's part of staying true to that. A lot of people may not understand, why centering our voices, why this, why that. But we have to stay true to the vision that God has given us, because we know that it's connected to a purpose, and we know that people's blessings are also going to be tied to that.
Right. That is so awesome. I can't tell you how much the work that you're doing, trying to highlight the importance of Black female educators in the lives of our students is so key. I think back to my daughters when I got out of college, we moved to Conway. We lived there for a while, and we left from a school. My daughters, they hadn't really had a Black teacher or a Black administrator, but when we went to the school that they went, we happened to come across. I'm sure you're familiar with her, Dr. Charlotte Green.
I have heard of her. Yes.
Yes. And she was the principal of Woodrow Cummings Elementary. And my daughters, just to have that impact, that emphasis there to someone that's going to be just like her mom and dad, to go in there and they can have somebody to look at as an aspiration, something they might want to do. And then to move forward of them going into high school and not really having a lot of African-American teachers, and then them wanting to have that in their lives, and them being accepted to different colleges, but them choosing HBCU so they can be able to have that connection to educators that have a similar background with them, that can relate things in a way that they can better understand or better comprehend. It was so key for them, so instrumental for them going into the things that they're doing right now. So I give you great applause to all the things that you're doing, trying to push this. And then I was, like you said, I was fortunate enough growing up where I had an elementary school principal that was black, Mr. Malvin Patterson. I had another elementary school principal, another female black educator, Miss Ethel Jones, that when I was at Dunbar, that was my first entryway into Shakespeare, because she introduced that to us when we did actual Romeo and Juliet play. Just having that educator, even though we come from the Bowie Court area or the Milam area, she introduced us to something different that we can relate to and be able to be happy about making A's or being on the A, B, or A on a roll. So I believe the aspect of you bringing in the resurgence of those black female educators, and eventually bringing in the importance of having those male administrators in the lives of our students is key, because there's not a whole lot in the community right now. And as opposed to what it used to be. So I applaud you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. If you don't mind, can I shout out a couple of Black women educators? Since we're here, the late great Edna Stewart was my second grade teacher. Miss Joanne Floyd, my fifth grade teacher. I definitely say just one of my favorite teachers, who is still very instrumental in my life, still very supportive. I receive random texts from her throughout, my journey, all the ups and downs that I've gone through personally in my personal life, professionally. She has continuously been there. And I had her as a teacher in fifth grade. So Miss Joanne Floyd, you know that I love you. I have to shout you out. She definitely represents someone who was different, who was progressive back when I was in her school classroom in fifth grade. There were things that we did in her classroom, and the way that she taught us and the way that she was involved and really invested in us that wasn't really happening in a lot of other classrooms. And so I'm so thankful to have had that experience. Mrs. Dorothy Brantley, who I had in middle school as my math teacher, who is still very much involved in my life. When I was a part of the Sparkle, which is an anthology, through Sparkle Publishing, I was one of the 10 co-authors for that book, and I had a book signing event here. Dorothy Brantley was a part of it. Like, my previous teacher showed up and was there to support me. And so that is what it's about. It's about really highlighting that how we experience life as Black women. That's what the research says. It's not all inclusive of all women. And anyone who has a problem with a specific group being able, again, to say how they've experienced life through that intersectionality of their race and their gender. Anyone who has an issue with that is definitely needing some more education and some more training around what it means to really have a diversified mindset, to truly understand inclusivity, to understand how, you are in this same space with individuals, like we work with each other, but how you may be experiencing this and the things that you're going through, you may have no idea how I'm being impacted, and how you're being addressed and how you're being talked to or how you're being reverenced may not be my experience. People questioning my intelligence, questioning me being a principal, and I was a fairly young principal. I even had someone to tell me, I didn't know, people could be principals this young. And having to have that conversation. So to me, I didn't get offended, Jeremy. For me, it was an opportunity to educate. It was an opportunity for me to share with you, but to have people to question your credentials. Whereas someone else may not know what that feels like, to have someone wonder, how did you come about achieving the things that you have achieved? And so centering our voices is really going to me, is really going to provide a platform to just catapult us into other things, podcast opportunities, book clubs, being able to host hopefully a summer summit or something that's connected to professional development, but to really empower other Black women educators to know that we are here. We see you. we applaud you. We're here to support you. And so I'm excited about it.
That's great. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to get that to my youngest daughter because she's even thinking about using her art and maybe going and being an art teacher as I call her a starving artist. So, so she's looking at that aspect of becoming an educator as well. So before we close, I know you do a lot with your business, with Divergent, with EdTech, with your work that you do on the university level, but you're also a person who's over the last 9 years has been a person who's giving out scholarships. So I know you have a scholarship that's available right now. So I want to give you another opportunity to kind of talk about that and kind of relay that information, how people can apply for your scholarship and what are the requirements.
Yes, thank you so much. I love all of these shameless plugs that you're allowing me to have. So, this is wonderful. And so, yes, the scholarship is the Each One Reach One Educational Scholarship. And back in 2015, 2016, which was my first year as a principal at Westlawn, I transitioned from Paul Lawrence Dunbar over to Westlawn to be the turnaround principal. And driving to work one day, coming down Westlawn Drive, it was just as clear as day that I needed to do something to give back. And I'm always trying to do something. Right. But it was as clear as day that I needed to establish a scholarship. And, I'm just going to be very real. This is part of my personality coming through. I'm just, where is money coming from? I'm an educator. We all know that educators are not compensated for our worth and the work that we do and the impact that we have. And that's a completely different conversation in podcast and book and all of those kind of things. But I'm sitting here like, okay, Lord. So I sit down and I do this brain dump and I'm thinking about what I'm going to do with this. And I reach out to Liberty Alo, again, my alma mater and where I worked. And I wanted to give back into that community because that is my upbringing. That's where I was raised. And I went to school in the Liberty Alo community from kindergarten all the way to high school. There was no moving around.
Right.
And so after I put it together, it was a part of inquiring, like, how does this work? Because I didn't know of anyone who had given a personal scholarship. And it was very simple to just say, if you have this scholarship that you're wanting to provide to the students, bring your packet or the eligibility requirements, however you have that together, bring that here. At the time, counselors, now we say academic advisors, provide that information. I could either make copies or they will replicate the packet, give that out to the seniors. I have a deadline when it's due so that we can review the information. And then just like TISD, I know Liberty Alo as well, you're able to be a part of the senior awards and be able to present it. And so for me, it was one of those conversations where my journey, I was raised as a single parent, by a single parent. And I know that my mom, shout out to Judy Chambers, Miss Judy, did an amazing job, but she always reminds me that she did not do that alone. Right. She had the help of a village, whether it was my family, extended family, people in the community, those teachers that I mentioned earlier. And so this was a way for me to think about my journey and being able to be part of a village to individuals who may be raised by a single parent or a guardian. And so part of that requirement is they have to be a current Liberty Alo high school senior who is actually going to enter into an accredited college or vocational school. And they have to show proof of that before the money is actually distributed. And they have to be raised by a single parent or a guardian. So it doesn't have to be just the mother or father. It could be an aunt, uncle, a grandparent, etc. That parent or guardian cannot be married, obviously. And then there's other criteria as far as their SAT score or the minimum SAT or ACT score, having their transcript, actually writing a little bit about, what the scholarship will do for them, and then having the voice of that guardian. So I also asked for them to give me a little bit about this student and tell me about their journey. And one of the joys that I've had with this is being able to sit down with my mother and us to go through the applications. And I wish in the past, it was my hope that I could give everyone who applied, the $500. I've actually had someone to match my scholarship a couple of times. So there have been years where I give 2 scholarships because someone has matched me and they see the work that I've done. And it's such an honor for someone to
Right.
reach out and say, I don't need a receipt. I trust you. And that speaks to that integrity. And I'm really, really big about my character. I'm really big about integrity. I don't mean to come across as if I'm perfect, because Lord knows I have made
Right.
many mistakes and have had grace and mercy extended to me. But I have
All of
really
us.
tried to, yes, all of us, I've really tried to grow and be mindful of my character and how I carry myself.
Right.
And someone to say, I honor what you're doing and I believe in you. I'm going to match your $500 this year, give another scholarship. As God speaks to me, there have been years where I double it for one individual just because I know the need. And so
Right.
we've given $1,000 just to one student before. And so just being obedient. Jeremy, I believe in obedience.
Yes, ma'am.
As I said earlier, I know that blessings are tied to my obedience and what I'm called to do. And obedience over popularity.
Right.
It's not about, what man or woman thinks I should do. But when God gives me the vision or when he says this is part of your purpose, I have to move with that. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited because a lot of these applicants in the past, they still keep in touch with me.
Right.
When I was a part of the mural downtown, the Heroes mural that was painted by Darlene Taylor, a couple of my students that I taught, one of them was also a scholarship recipient. They came and took pictures with me in
Right.
front of the mural. And so it's just huge. It's just about making a connection. And that's why it's called Each One Reach One. It's just whatever you can do, no matter how big, how small. It's not a comparing it to what other people are doing. Do what you can do to make a difference in the community. So because I don't work in public schools anymore within our area, that didn't mean that I can't still give back and
Right.
influence what's happening in our area. So the scholarship was started when I was in public schools, and it's going to continue no matter what I'm doing and no matter where I live. It's going to continue. And I'm just really thankful to be a vessel for students to tell me thank you. It's really needed. Thank you. This is going to help me with whatever. And I don't put a restriction on how the $500 is
Right.
used. You've earned it. You took the step, first of all, to get the application, complete the application, turn it in. And if you were chosen, use this as you see fit.
That is so awesome. I love the scholarship. I equally love it because you have that vocational school piece in there, because it's a lot of students. The 4-year track might not be the best route for them. And
Yes.
they might be doing those career technology education trades in high school, and they want to advance that. And those are some of the fastest moving careers now. So I
Yes.
like that piece that you're providing an opportunity to those students who may not go to the 4-year school, but they can go to that vocational school and still
Right.
be able to have a good career.
Absolutely.
This has been a really wonderful interview. I think that's one of the reasons why I want to bring you on, because all of the things that you're doing, the impact that you're not only just having on the Black female educators or within the educational sphere, but within the community, the work that you're doing is not only just impacting just one person. That one person that you impact is spreading across the, not only just here, but in the state. I'm going to leave with one of the quotes that you had on your Facebook page from Martin Luther King. And it says, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. And I think the work that you're doing
Yes.
is affecting all of us indirectly in the path that we're going. I'm really big on, I'll look at the negative stuff, but my thing is to highlight all the good and important things that are going on in the community. And you happen to be one of those good and important things that's going on in the community.
Oh,
And so
thank you.
I want to try to highlight you. Next week, we're going to highlight Miss Darlene and all the work she's doing with her murals to inspire that next upcoming artist in the community, in the Black community,
Yes.
that may be struggling with their art. They may not think that what they're doing is going to pay off to serve as inspiration. So I want her to come on and kind of talk about her path, her career, just like you, your path. All of our paths are similar, our backgrounds, from the people that educated us to the people that mentored us. Those pieces from education to mentorship is how we get people to achieve their fullest potential. And I'd like to applaud you, as we say, give you your flowers now of all the great work that you're doing now and what you're going to project to do. Your assignment is bright. So you have a big assignment, and I think you stepped up to it. So again, I'd like to thank you for all the time you spent with us this evening. And Texarkana, if you haven't been involved, you have a student at Liberty ILO, a senior, and that you feel like will benefit from this scholarship, get that paperwork in. Hey, you can call me. I'll proofread whatever you want to send in, so we can try to help them get that scholarship. But this is an opportunity for you to connect with someone in the community that can help you reach to that next level. So again, before I leave, I would like to say, TXK, what's your state of mind? And thank you.